Welcome into the Steelers Talk live show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today, just a couple days before Christmas, we got some great Steelers content for you guys here on a beautiful Tuesday evening. On today's show, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. First up, the latest news and rumors from Tomlin Tuesday. Then we'll get into my preview, my in-depth preview for Week 17. It is Browns week after all, and the Steelers, all they have to do is get a win versus the Browns to clinch the AFC North Division Championship this year. Then also we'll discuss a pretty interesting segment here in our third segment today. I'm going to tell you a couple similarities that the Pittsburgh Steelers have with a couple of NFL champions over the last half decade. And then we'll get into your questions. The Week 17 mailbag will be today because we won't be live on Thursday because it is Christmas Day on Thursday, so we will not be live on Thursday this week. So this will be our only live show here on Steelers Talk before we go live for Ravens versus Packers on Saturday night. And of course, if the Ravens lose that football game to the Packers at Lambeau Field, the Steelers will be crowned AFC North champions before they take even another snap this year. So if you guys want to get a question on today's show, you guys can use hashtag Steelers down there in the comment section to get your question on the show for free today. Or if you guys want to super chat on today's show, you guys can guarantee that your question gets on the program today. So the real ones know, all you have to do is go down there in the live chat room, use hashtag Steelers, then put whatever question you want after that. So for example, hashtag Steelers, will Pittsburgh win a playoff game this year? Or whatever question you have. If you have a question you want to get on the mailbag today and you want to get your voice right next to me here on screen, feel free to use hashtag Steelers. Or if you want to guarantee your question gets on the show today, every single person that super chats any dollar amount will get their question on the mailbag this evening. So I want to see who's all here. We got over 300 people already in the chat room right now. Spam those me's down there in the comment section if you've liked the stream for a shout out here. We've got Goblin, we've got Logan, we got Devone here, we got Mexamander, Czar Craig as always is here, we got Steelers for Life, we've got Cool Hand Luke, we got K-Dog, we've got Pop Sport, we've got Cameraman, we got Gen05, we've got Dick Slims, we've got Unreal, Enzo, we've got Logan Blitz, Pittsburgh Titans, Mug Wolf, Enzo, Komodo Dragon, Evan, we got John, we got Enzo, Devone, John. We got a good crew of Steelers fans ready to get things going here. Of course, my lovely fiance Cassie Voth is with us as well. So let's get into it here, Ponzi. And, it's another very interesting week for the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially because of the 2-week suspension that DK Metcalf now has. Now, I know a lot of Steelers fans, everyone's been telling me on Twitter, he's appealing it. But it's like, the NFL very rarely takes away, their original ruling. Like unless there's like brand new evidence that shows up, usually these appeals get upheld, and it's certainly looking like DK will be out for these next 2 games. Now, if the Ravens just lose on Saturday, it doesn't matter at all. The rest of the regular season doesn't matter, so DK not being able to play doesn't matter at all. But if the Ravens win on Saturday, which is possible because Jordan Love is in concussion protocol, Malik Willis, their backup quarterback, has a shoulder injury, they could be down to their 3rd quarterback. And, of course, Derrick Henry is probably the best offensive player maybe on either team. So the Ravens could, find a way to win that game. And if that's the case, then there's a lot of pressure to beat Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland on Sunday, Ponzi. Do you think the Pittsburgh Steelers will clinch the AFC North this week?
Now, I really do think that they can. I think it's pretty, the path is very narrow for them, or very open for them. They could even clinch it by the time they play on Sunday.
Yep.
But it's one of those things where if the Ravens somehow win with Stu Huntley or whatever, but then it kind of becomes a little bit scary to me. Because I've seen how this offense works before without the number 1 in years past, with George Pickens going out. And I'm not really too concerned about, okay, if DK is completely out, the Steelers could stagnate on offense. I'm more worried about the fact that, the Browns' defense is really good. That's pretty much the only thing that they have. So, it could be a low-scoring one of those games where the Browns could pull off an upset, and then it comes down to Week 18.
And you don't have DK.
Exactly. So, I'm more concerned about the fact that it would be very Steeler-ish, or, maybe even the NFL coming in and, giving a couple calls to the Browns, so it does come down to Week 18. But, I think in all likelihood they do.
You think they do win the division?
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
win the division.
right now ESPN gives them a 93% chance to win it. I think New York Times is giving them a 91% chance of winning the division. You have three ways that you can clinch the division, right? Baltimore can lose on Saturday, the Steelers can win on Sunday, or the Steelers can win in Week 18. Those are the three ways that the Steelers could clinch. The only way the Steelers don't win the division is if they go 0 for 3 in those three scenarios. So obviously the odds are in the Pittsburgh Steelers' favor. But with this DK Metcalf suspension, it does make things a little bit weird, especially if the Ravens win on Saturday. Now, if I'd have to pick, I'm going to pick the Green Bay Packers to win right now. We'll see what the quarterback situation looks like. Will Lamar Jackson play for the Ravens? Will Jordan Love play for Green Bay? Those are going to be two big question marks that we don't know right now. Right now, I would probably still say Green Bay's the favorite there in that game in Green Bay. If that happens, obviously, then the Steelers could rest their starters for not 1 but 2 weeks, and that would be huge for this team, Ponzi, because you got a little bit of an older squad, right? I think we have one of the older teams in the National Football League, if not the oldest, if I'm not mistaken. And to have guys like Cam Hayward, Aaron Rodgers, T.J. Watt, Jalen Ramsey, some of these older players, to get a week or two of rest and to rest their legs and to get fresh before the postseason could be absolutely massive for Mike Tomlin's crew here as they try to gear up to get their first playoff win in a very, very long time since the 2016 season when they made the AFC Championship game. Haven't seen a playoff win here in Pittsburgh since. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here. I think Pittsburgh is playing their best ball of the season. They've won 3 straight games. Their offense and defense is clicking at the right time. You just got to get into the dance, Ponzi, especially if you got a home playoff game. You always got a chance to win a playoff game. And right now, the Steelers would play the Chargers in Week 1. That is a warm weather football team coming to frigid Pittsburgh in January against a red hot Steelers team. Justin Herbert's played terrible in his 2 playoff games. I feel pretty decent about the Steelers' chances of winning that game if we do play the Los Angeles Chargers. All right, out of the teams that we could theoretically play in round 1, I would say the Chargers would be towards the top of my list. And right now, it's a possibility the Steelers could play any of the other 6 teams that are going to be making the postseason here, okay? Because you got Denver, who's currently in a race with LA. If the Chargers beat the Broncos in the final game of the year and their records are tied, LA actually has the tiebreaker over Denver. So we could actually play Bo Nix and the Broncos Week 1 here in Pittsburgh, or in Week 1 of the postseason, I should say. It's still possible for the Bills to take over the Patriots, even though the Patriots have a pretty easy schedule the rest of the way. I'm guessing the Bills will be the wild card for the AFC East, but then Jacksonville and Houston are in a battle for the top of the AFC South. It's going to be interesting to see who wins that battle. I think Jacksonville probably gets on top there, but there's definitely nothing set in stone in terms of which team the Steelers are going to be playing in the first round of the playoffs if they make it.
Because they could even be playing the Broncos.
Yeah, they could be playing the Broncos. So, I'm looking right now. The teams that I want to play are the teams that are in warm weather environments, all right? Jacksonville, LA, even Houston. I know people are scared to death of Houston because they got a great defense, but CJ Stroud has been so up and down all season long, and in a cold environment, he's never played well in the cold. So I feel like the Steelers would actually have a pretty decent chance to beat Houston if the game is in Pittsburgh, and of course it would be if it's a first-round matchup. So I'm actually not as scared as the Texans as a lot of other Steelers fans are, but right now, as it stands right now, you'd be playing the Chargers, and I'd be perfectly fine with that matchup, and I think the Steelers would have a pretty good chance of winning that ball game if that ends up being the case. Got some super chats to hit here before we get into our first segment of the day. Bernard with a 2 says, do you think the Steelers beat the Browns without DK? If they're playing their starters, I think they still should. All right, this is to your point, Ponzi, about how this team has kind of crumbled without their number 1 receiver in years past, and that certainly was the case last year. They didn't distribute the ball the same way that they do this year, though. They got multiple weapons at running back, at Jaylen Warren and Kenny Gainwell that can both catch the ball out of the backfield. Got multiple weapons at tight end that you can throw to as well. And then Adam Thielen, MVS, and then Scotty Miller showed to be a pretty, decent piece for this offense last week. And then Roman Wilson can get back into the mix this week as well. So, the fact that they're not so DK Metcalf dependent, I think, means that this team can find ways to get the ball to other players. But from an X's and O's standpoint, not having the gravity, as I would put it, Ponzi, of DK Metcalf, where you're getting those shaded safeties and you're getting a lot of attention to DK Metcalf's side of the field, it might kind of close up some opportunities for some of these other pieces, which would be my concern. But I guess we'll have to see how it all works out. But this offense in Cleveland is absolutely terrible, and they've been really relying on the run game this year when they have been successful, and they have no running backs left. All right, Jerome Ford and Quinshon Judkins both out for the rest of the season. Right now, Travion Williams is their number one running back, Ponzi.
Yeah, and Dylan Sampson's questionable, who would be the running back one.
Yeah, and Dylan Sampson is questionable, so we'll see if he's able to go. And if not, then they're going to be really down bad at the running back position, and that, of course, means that Shedeur Sanders is going to be, a very pass-heavy quarterback for Cleveland next week, or this week, I should say. And I don't love his chances against this Steelers pass rush because you're expected to get Nick Herbig back this week. This passing defense has been a lot better in weeks past. The run defense has been phenomenal. And if they're passing the ball a ton, like they did in week 6, by the way, Dylan Gabriel passed the ball a ton in that football game. The Steelers are going to be able to do the same thing they did at Acrisure Stadium and just get after this rookie quarterback. By the way, Mike Tomlin has like an 81% win percentage versus rookie quarterbacks in his career. So if this comes down to Shedeur Sanders versus a Mike Tomlin defense, I think the Steelers will win on Sunday even without DK Metcalf, or at least they should. Another one from Bernard Nixon says, as long as we've got 8, we'll be fine. Yeah, I think that especially because Rodgers has done such a good job distributing the ball to a bunch of different people, right? People get so honed in on a wide receiver too, but it's kind of a group effort, right? I think it's more of a group effort in that number 2 secondary role, and then DK's the true primary number 1, and now that DK's gone, you just got to, share the wealth a little bit more among the group, right? There's not any standout player that you have to target this guy in the receiving game. It's more about just spreading the ball out, spreading the ball to a lot of different people, making the defense guard every blade of grass out there, and I think Rodgers is the perfect quarterback to play that style of ball. $2 again from Bernard says, do you think A-Rod is better than Russ? Yes, 100%, Bernard. That's not even a question to me. We had these discussions back during free agency last year of why I wanted Aaron Rodgers over Russell Wilson, and I think the biggest way that Rodgers has been an upgrade over Russ is he takes way less sacks. He holds the ball for far less time, and that's helped out the offensive line. This team currently has the lowest pressure rate in the league by a wide margin because of how fast Aaron Rodgers gets rid of the football. And he uses his great football intellect to get the ball out fast. Russ just wanted to go for the deep shots all the time, so he would just hold the ball and he would try to scramble, and then he would take sacks, and then after the sacks they had really no chance to move the chains and drives would be ended. So I think that's the big way Aaron Rodgers has been better than Russell Wilson. And he's certainly been an upgrade over Russ this year, in my opinion. So let's get into our first segment of the day here, guys. Tomlin Tuesday, news and rumors. We got a lot to talk about today. The latest surrounding DK Metcalf. We've got some stuff on Roman Wilson, the latest injury updates. And then later in the show, we've got our in-depth preview for Browns week. Then we'll get into how the Pittsburgh Steelers are repeating NFL history by following in the footsteps of 2 former Super Bowl champion teams over the last half decade. And then we'll get into your questions with the mailbag to finish up today's show. Got a bunch of stuff to talk about on today's live programs. Let's jump right into it here. The latest news and rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. Happy Tomlin Tuesday, Steelers Nation. I am your host, Jack Sperry, and you are watching Steelers Talk. On the top of today's show, we've got the latest on the DK Metcalf situation. Today was his appeal hearing. Going to let you guys know the very latest that we're hearing on his suspension. Then we'll get into some injury updates from Mike Tomlin, the Steelers head coach himself. Some injury updates here heading into Browns week. Then we'll get into a big opportunity for a young Steelers player coming up this week that I'll get into at the end of today's show, so make sure you guys stick around. But before we get into our content today and today's news and rumors, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already for our daily Steelers videos here on Steelers Talk. All right, it's all 100% free to enjoy our free content here on YouTube. Breaking news coverage during the offseason, whenever the con artist strikes with a trade or with a big signing. Weekly live shows breaking down the latest news and rumors when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, of course, we have live watch parties for every single Steelers game this year. Hopefully the Steelers are going to be making the postseason this year, and hopefully hopefully we can get a couple playoff watch parties for you guys, at least a couple here. So if you guys want to click that subscribe button, help us get to 110,000 subscribers here on the show. Greatly appreciate your support. And now let's get into the news here, starting with DK Metcalf, who is having his appeal hearing with the National Football League today after the league came down with a massive 2-game suspension after Metcalf had a physical altercation with a fan in Detroit on Sunday. Now, the suspension also cost $45 million in guaranteed money that is now null and void on DK Metcalf's contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had a lot of guaranteed money on his deal. Now, obviously, all the guaranteed money for this year has already been locked in, but the guaranteed money for the previous for the upcoming years, I should say, has been null and void if this suspension holds. So this is obviously a very expensive suspension for DK Metcalf. Now, just to be clear, that money can still be earned by Metcalf if he's still on the team for the entirety of his contract. It's just the guaranteed money that's left on his deal has been null and void by this suspension by the National Football League. So let's talk here about the latest reporting here from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler on what Metcalf is arguing in his appeal. He says DK Metcalf is going to argue that not only was he incited, but that this was a recurring thing with this particular fan. Apparently that this fan had been involved in the past with trying to egg on Metcalf and get his attention. Some of those things still doesn't excuse the behavior, but he is hoping to knock that 2-game suspension down to either 1 game or perhaps a hefty fine. Then when Mike Tomlin, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, took the podium today, he says he quote-unquote supports Metcalf after he heard Metcalf's side of the story. This is what Tomlin had to say in his weekly press conference. DK did explain to me why he did what he did. I certainly don't condone the behavior, but I support DK, and I really don't have a lot to add other than what I just told you. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. I understand that, but that's just the posture I'm in as I sit here today. So listen, man, there's a lot of new stuff coming out here. Some new video from the game itself has come out, showing the fans saying that it was his goal to get Metcalf to react and kind of, engage physically with him. So that's something that the appeal could potentially look at here in the coming days. But, there's also a precedent that's been set here that doesn't really match what the NFL has done in the past. Earlier this season in Buffalo, Lamar Jackson just straight up shoved a Buffalo Bills fan, and he got no suspension for that. All right, that was a physical altercation with a fan where he had a forcible shove of a Buffalo Bills player. But hey, it's Lamar Jackson, it's a Ravens player. We can't have him get suspended, right? So that seems a little hypocritical by the National Football League. And then just last year, Shaq Lawson of the Buffalo Bills shoved an Eagles fan post game. Once again, no suspension. So listen, man, I get it. This is not behavior that is good by DK Metcalf. I don't care what he said to him. He shouldn't be going up to him, grabbing his shirt, and then shoving him back into the stands, right? That's just dumb behavior, to be quite frank with you, no matter what he said to him. But I think that, those added pieces of context should drive down this suspension from 2 games to 1 game, especially because if the Steelers lose this week versus Cleveland and the Ravens beat the Packers, that means next week's matchup in Week 18 decides the Steelers' season. So to not have DK Metcalf for that massive game, I think would be going overboard when it comes to the NFL disciplining DK Metcalf. And I understand that, the penalty has to be severe enough where it's a deterrent, so other players are not going to interact with fans moving forward. But I think a 1-game suspension is a punishment that more than fits the crime here. And I think 2 games goes a little bit overboard, at least in my personal opinion. However, I'm not really expecting the NFL to, reverse their ruling here. These appeals are rarely successful. And unless there's new evidence provided, the NFL usually does not change their decision. So maybe there is some new evidence that's being presented by DK Metcalf's team, and they end up reversing the decision, and they take away one of the games on the suspension. That's what we're hoping for, but I wouldn't get my hopes up at this point in time. But if Pittsburgh clinches this week, that second week of the suspension doesn't really matter at all. The only way that this suspension really hurts the Steelers is if somehow, some way, the Ravens have a chance to win the division next week. And the way that happens is if the Ravens beat the Packers on Saturday and then the Steelers lose versus the Cleveland Browns. But if the Steelers can win, or if the Ravens can lose, I should say, versus the Green Bay Packers, and the Steelers already have the division locked up, Mike Tomlin did say today at his weekly press conference that he, quote-unquote, may sit some starters versus the Cleveland Browns if that's the case. And if he's going to sit them for the Cleveland game, we can assume that he would also sit them for the Baltimore Ravens game. Now, there's a number of players that you could consider sitting. I think the ones that are pretty obvious are guys like Aaron Rodgers, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, those guys in particular, because they're older players. Obviously, Watt is dealing with a recent lung issue. Those are the players that could really use some rest. Older players that could really use some extra juice in their legs in a bye week, so to speak, going into the postseason. But other guys to consider, DK Metcalf, if he does win his appeal and he is eligible to play the final week of the season, I would think about sitting him regardless. Jalen Ramsey, we'll see what the injury situation looks like in the secondary. Right now there's some injuries in the secondary for Pittsburgh, so maybe it's not the most prudent decision to sit Ramsey for a game or two, but he's an older player that could use some rest for sure. Kyle Duggar's another guy that's out past the age of 30 that could use a week rest there. You have some pretty good depth at the safety position. Jabril Peppers and Chuck Clark have played quite a bit for this team. Zach Frazier is a guy that you can't afford to get injured. Ryan McCollum could play these two games and just save Zach Frazier, because if he gets injured, that's going to be a big miss for the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. Troy Fautano is the guy that they put on an island a lot on the right side. If he gets injured, I think that would be a significant injury. So if you wanted to preserve his health, you could think about sitting him down. Then Darnell Washington is another X factor that can't be replaced in the Steelers offense. So to prevent any sort of injury to him, you could think about sitting him as well. But it would be interesting to see for sure what Mike Tomlin decides to do in terms of which starters he decides to sit and which ones he decides to play if the division gets locked up before this team takes another snap. But the big question for me is, if they do decide to sit Aaron Rodgers, and we can almost assuredly know for sure that Rodgers would be one of the players that would be sitting. He's still nursing a fractured wrist, giving him a couple more weeks for that wrist to fully heal, not to mention, keep his legs, fresh heading into the postseason would be massive. But the big question for me is who starts at quarterback if Rodgers sits? Do they go with the backup quarterback, Mason Rudolph, or do they go with the third string, Will Howard, and see what he's got? Now, for me, I would start the rookie Will Howard, all right? And the reason why I would start Howard is because I don't know if there's going to be another opportunity to see what Howard can do in an actual NFL football game before you have to make a decision as to whether or not you're going to give him a chance to be this team's starting quarterback of the future. All right, my two reasons why I'm picking Howard is, number one, I want to see what Will's got in a real NFL game, like I just mentioned. Then my second reason is we don't want Rudolph to get injured either, guys, because if Rudolph plays and he gets injured and then you go into the playoffs and then Aaron Rodgers gets injured, you're going to be stuck with Will Howard with pretty much no NFL playing experience playing in a playoff game for you. So you still want to have Mason Rudolph available in the playoffs behind Aaron Rodgers if, God forbid, he goes down with an injury, because we know this team can stay afloat with Rudolph and can stay competitive with him. We don't know that about Will Howard at this point, which is the biggest reason why I want to see Will. I want to see what he's got, and I want to see what he can do against two pretty decent defenses. Cleveland and Baltimore have pretty decent defenses, so I'd love to see what Will Howard can do in cold weather environments in the AFC North, see if he's got the chops to play against NFL caliber defenses in division and within those playing conditions. So pick your quarterback for me down there in the comments section. Type MR for Mason Rudolph or type WH for Will Howard. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section for this pinned question of today's video. Just a second here, I'm going to give you guys a great opportunity to get a great piece of Steelers apparel from our sponsor today. And while I talk about that great opportunity, let me know which quarterback you would play if Aaron Rodgers gets sat down for the rest of the regular season. With that, let's have a word from our sponsor here. You guys can go to chatsports.com/AR8 to pick up an Aaron Rodgers Steelers jersey of your own. Right now. Obviously, you guys can use code CHEERS here for 25% off to get this jersey, a quarter off here right before Christmas. And listen, man, this is such a fun season for me and for us as Steelers fans. Aaron Rodgers, one of the all-time great quarterbacks, coming to Pittsburgh and, combining forces with Cam Hayward and DK Metcalf. This is going to be a season that we're going to remember for a very long time. And a Rodgers jersey, I think, is going to be something you can wear for a while. So go to chatsports.com/AR8 AR8. If you guys want to remember this awesome season, fun season with Aaron Rodgers as this team's starting quarterback with a jersey, again, just go to chatsports.com/AR8 and use code CHEERS for 25% off this jersey today. Now, we got some of the latest injury updates from head coach Mike Tomlin today from the south side of Pittsburgh. Said he does not have much of an update on TJ Watt. He did say that he thinks he may practice this week, and he thinks he will speak to the media for the first time since he had that partially collapsed lung from a dry needling session in the Steelers building. So if and when he does talk to the media, that's going to be something to keep your eye on this week. Also, he said that he's optimistic that Nick Herbig is going to be able to play this week against the Cleveland Browns. He is nursing a hamstring injury, but I also think Herbig's one of those guys where if the division is locked up by Saturday night, then he might be another guy that gets sat down for another week to get another week of healing for that hamstring and get back to 100%. Brandon Echols, Mike Tomlin said, is hopeful to play this week as well. He dealt with an ankle injury, could not finish the game on Sunday versus Detroit, but he is hopeful to play this Sunday. James Pierre has been dealing with a calf issue these last 2 weeks. He's missed the last 2 games, is working out now, and is questionable to play Sunday, so we'll see how his status progresses throughout the week. And then Tomlin did not provide a status update on Calvin Austin III's hamstring injury that he suffered in the game against Detroit. He did not return to the game, so we'll keep you guys updated on Calvin's status as the week goes on. But I can't say that I have a ton of confidence at this point that he's going to be able to play against the Browns on Sunday. So that's going to provide a great opportunity to one Roman Wilson here, who hasn't been getting a helmet lately over the last 3 weeks. And it just so happens that the offense is kind of on fire these last 3 weeks since he's not been in the starting lineup. But Mike Tomlin did allude today that Roman Wilson will be the solution to replace DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin III in this Steelers passing attack. Especially, if DK is not going to be able to go this week, and it certainly looks like he will not be. Same thing goes for Calvin Austin III. But this is what Mike Tomlin had to say about the former third-round pick. One man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. A guy like Roman Wilson, for example, who has been working extremely hard and growing throughout the course of this thing, but had his role reduced in recent weeks. I'm excited for what this opportunity might mean for him to display growth in the midst of the time where he hadn't been participating, to show his professionalism and his readiness and how he's been sharpening his sword for battle in the ranks while he hadn't been playing. Now, obviously, Roman is probably going to get a helmet this weekend, but Scotty Miller is also going to get a helmet, and Scotty actually played pretty well in his limited role last week against the Detroit Lions. Had a couple really big, weighty down moments there, catching first down conversions on 3rd and 4th downs in that football game, and he showed some good route running ability. He showed an ability to toe tap down the sideline. Scotty Miller looked pretty good, so the question is, how does the depth chart and the rotation kind of look in terms of snap count in this wide receiver room heading into this week? And with DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin III probably out this week versus Cleveland, this is what the Steelers have to work with in terms of their available wide receivers. And, Ben Skoranek has been nursing, an upper body injury, and he hasn't really been able to be out there in a receiving capacity. He's been out there in special teams and in the tush-push situations, but he hasn't really been able to catch over the last several weeks. I don't know what his situation is with that, but right now you got Marquez Valdes-Scantling, you got Adam Thielen. Those guys are pretty much locked in as starters at this point, but then the question becomes, who becomes wide receiver 3? Would it be Scotty Miller or would it be Roman Wilson? And, Roman was playing above Scotty when Roman, was still getting his helmet, but Scotty Miller just showed up in a big way last week and showed some legitimate receiving chops. So it's going to be interesting to see what this rotation looks like heading into this week. We'll keep you updated on Calvin Austin III's status as the week goes on as well. But I am excited to see, if and when Roman Wilson can take this opportunity, by the horns and, show this coaching staff what he's capable of doing. Because I think, not everything, in terms of his lack of, big plays and all this different stuff this season has been his fault. I mean, he's been open down the field quite a bit this year. Now, I think sometimes he, maybe doesn't run the route exactly the way Aaron Rodgers wants it to be run and the coaching staff wants it to be run. And sometimes maybe he's not exactly where he needs to be in the route at the timing of the progression, stuff that's, a little bit more due to the nuance and the detail of the position. But he's been open on go routes a number of times this year, and I think there might be some opportunities to throw him the ball down the field in this football game against Cleveland, a team that plays a lot of man coverage. So I'm excited to see what Roman can do with this opportunity, and hopefully he can prove to this coaching staff that he can be a contributor for this offense in future seasons. So pick your wide receiver 3 for me down there in the comments section. Type SM for Scotty Miller, or type RW if you would want to go with Roman Wilson as the number 3 receiver in the rotation this week. But that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors, presented by Chat Sports here on Steelers Talk. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, first segment in the books, Mr. Ponzi. Got over 600 people watching live here. Appreciate each and every one of you guys watching. Coming up next, we're going to be having our Week 17 in-depth preview for this week's game. It's Browns week, so obviously interdivision matchup on the road. Those are never easy ball games. But on the other hand, this is a Cleveland football team that is really struggling offensively. They got a rookie quarterback. Mike Tomlin is really good traditionally against rookie quarterbacks. This is a Steelers defense that's playing pretty darn well here over the last few weeks. So looking forward to this weekend's game, and it might not even matter. Maybe they don't even need to really try to win this football game in terms of playing all their starters and stuff like that. And who knows, we might not even see Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Jalen Ramsey, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward this week as they rest up for the postseason. But there's certainly a possibility that we have to go into Sunday needing a win to lock up the division and prevent the Ravens having a shot going into the season finale. So we're going to get into that here in just a second. Also, we got a couple more segments to get into later in the show, including a mailbag. So if you guys got a question that you want to get on the show today, you guys can use hashtag Steelers down there in the live chat room along with your question, and you guys can get your questions in, or you guys can super chat to get your questions on today's show. The only way to guarantee your question gets on the show is if you super chat. And it doesn't have to be a big super chat, guys. It can be a 2 or a 5 or a 10. No matter what the super chat amount, we will make sure to get your super chat question on today's show. So make sure you get those questions down there. I appreciate all of your guys' support. I'm going to take one more drink here. All right. Let's get into it. Our in-depth preview here on Steelers Talk for Week 17 is coming at you right now. This week, the Pittsburgh Steelers travel to Cleveland to take on the Browns for the second time this season, trying to get the season sweep over their division rivals. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. And this week, we are doing a sub-battle with our frenemies here at the Browns Report, our Browns channel here at Chat Sports. And right now, they have slightly more new subscribers than us this week. They've got 6 more new subscribers this week. More than us. We're trying to pass them right now, guys, because we've never lost a sub-battle here on Steelers Talk in the history of our channel. We're not about to lose our first one to the frickin' Browns. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button. If you're new to the channel, if you guys care about the Pittsburgh Steelers, you want to help us beat the Browns Report today, make sure you guys click that subscribe button. And new viewers, we are counting on you guys. There are thousands of people that are watching this video right now that are already subscribed. Those guys are the real ones. They can't help us out here. It's got to be new blood. New subscribers is what we're looking for here, guys. So if you've been watching our channel for a while, you like our content, but you haven't clicked that subscribe button, help us beat the Browns right now by clicking that subscribe button and joining the Steelers Talk family today. All right, man, so the Pittsburgh Steelers have a hell of an opportunity in front of them this week. If they beat the Cleveland Browns this week, no matter what, they win the AFC North Division Championship. But it's not going to be easy, man. Even though the Browns are 3-12, they have arguably the worst offense in the National Football League, and they just lost their number 1 running back. This is a team that the Steelers have had kind of a tough time beating in their stadium. I mean, just look at last year on a Thursday night in a blizzard. The red-hot Pittsburgh Steelers ended up losing to Jameis Winston and the Cleveland Browns on that Thursday night. And as we know, Thursday nights can get weird, all this different stuff. It's late in the season now. There's lots of injuries on the Cleveland Browns roster that we'll discuss on today's show. Steelers should win this football game, but just keep in mind that these interdivision matchups on the road can get funky from time to time. But if Baltimore loses on Saturday, guys, they play the Green Bay Packers. This game doesn't matter a ton. All right. In fact, it doesn't matter at all. The Pittsburgh Steelers are the number 4 seed in the AFC playoffs, and they will be hosting a playoff game as the AFC North Division champions. So if that's the case, I think we could see backups. And Mike Tomlin, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, even alluded to the fact that we could see some backups. Like, for example, Will Howard could be getting his first NFL start this week. If the Steelers have the division locked up, we could see Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Jalen Ramsey, some of the older veterans on this team that this team, frankly, can't afford to lose to injury in the final 2 weeks. Could see those guys take a couple games off here before the playoff game at Acrisure Stadium. But with that said, Pittsburgh absolutely this week needs to prepare as if they need to win this game on Sunday afternoon, because if the Ravens can pull off the upset versus the Green Bay Packers, the Steelers need to win this football game against a team with a really good defense on the road to be able to lock up this division and shut the door on the Baltimore Ravens before we play Baltimore in the season finale at Acrisure Stadium next week. Now, the good news is Mike Tomlin is really good against rookie quarterbacks. And, of course, Shedeur Sanders, rookie quarterback out of Colorado, is the Browns' starting quarterback right now. Mike Tomlin has a 27-6 record versus rookie QBs, including with a win over Dillon Gabriel, the other Browns rookie quarterback, back in Week 6. So that's an over 81% win percentage. Mike Tomlin is really good at confusing young quarterbacks in this league. Now, the problem is Mike Tomlin is 9-8-1 in games in Cleveland in his career, okay? So that's something to keep in mind when it comes to Mike Tomlin. But you guys can take a look at what happened the first time around here between these two clubs back in Week 6 at Acrisure Stadium, and the Steelers absolutely got after that ass, all right? Dillon Gabriel, 52 pass attempts. I'm expecting a similar number from Shedeur Sanders in this game because of some of the injuries that the Browns have in the running back room. But it wasn't a good day for the Browns offense, just 9 points. The Steelers were okay in that game. 2 touchdown passes for Aaron Rodgers, and DK Metcalf had a pretty decent game. Obviously, he won't be playing in this game because he'll be serving a suspension. But that's what we did in the last matchup versus the Browns back earlier in the season. But as I mentioned earlier, guys, Mike Tomlin is 9-8-1 versus the Browns in Cleveland in his career. So a slightly, over 50% record, but he's also 1-5 in his last 6 games in that building. So this has been a building that the Steelers have had trouble getting victories in, including last year. And it's not like that Browns team last year was that much better than what they've been putting on film this year. Also, another storyline heading into this one is that superstar edge rusher Myles Garrett could break the all-time single-season sack record if he gets even a half sack versus Aaron Rodgers this weekend. He would be beating, of course, TJ Watt's record of 22.5 sacks in a single season. So we got to make sure we stop Myles Garrett. Keep in mind, Garrett was sackless in Week 6. They did stymie him. This Steelers offense has been one of the only teams in the league that has been able to do that against Garrett this year, but they have given up 5 sacks in their last 2 games against Myles Garrett in this building. Okay, so when they're on the road, Garrett has been a big-time impact player for the Browns defense. Now, the last 2 years, the Steelers have had quarterbacks that hold the ball longer than Aaron Rodgers does. So if Rodgers is playing on Sunday, Garrett better get to him quick because we know Rodgers loves to get that ball out fast. Now, the Browns have suffered a lot of really unfortunate injuries this year. Quinshon Judkins just broke his fibula last week. He's going to be out for the rest of the season. Our thoughts and prayers go out to him, by the way. Jack Conklin, their right tackle, is out. Ethan Pocic, their center, is out. Malik Collins, who is having a really good season on the interior of their D-line, is out. DeJuan Jones, their swing tackle, is out. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, their excellent off-ball linebacker, is out. Jerome Ford, their number 2 running back, is out. And then one of their corners, Martin Emerson, is also out for the season. So lots of impact players for them are out at this stage in the season. And then some other names to keep your eye on this week. Denzel Ward, dealing with an injury, did not play last week against Buffalo, so we'll see what his status looks like throughout the week. Dylan Sampson, the Browns are really hoping he can play, the rookie out of Tennessee, this week because they're missing Ford and Judkins for the rest of the season. So if they don't have Sampson, they're going to be really down bad at running back this week. Michael Hall, Wyatt Teller, and David Njoku are their other 3 starters that are questionable heading into the week. Then there's obviously injuries to watch on the Steelers side of things as well. TJ Watt, Nick Herbig, James Pierre, Isaac Seumalo, Calvin Austin III, and Brandon Echols, all injuries to watch this week. My guess is, they will be very cautious with these guys if the Steelers have the division locked up with a Ravens loss on Saturday. Now we can get into the scheme breakdown for the Cleveland Browns and what you guys can expect from this coaching staff on Sunday afternoon. Kevin Stefanski is their head coach. He has a record of 43-56, and it's kind of crazy that guy has won 2 Coach of the Year trophies. Mike Tomlin has 0, and Stefanski has a below 500 record by 13 games. That's kind of a crazy thing to think about, but they do run an old-school Shanahan-style offense, lots of heavy personnel. Tommy Rees is their offensive play caller here in Cleveland, and then Jim Schwartz is an excellent DC, calling an attacking 4-2 defense. Lots of press, lots of man coverage. Expect to see a lot of that from this Cleveland defense on Sunday afternoon. You guys can take a look at where this offense ranks among the rest of the National Football League, and it's not great. They're dead last in a lot of key areas: yards per play, EPA per play, EPA per pass, success rate. It's just not a very good offense. They're 31st in points per game at just 16.4. They give the ball away too, 22 giveaways. So there's just not a whole lot that this Cleveland offense, can hang its hat on. The best thing that they do is score in the red zone, and they're not even in the top 20 in that category. So this offense is not a very good one. And with the Steelers defense playing, as red hot as they have been lately, I think that this is a group that they should be able to shut down yet again, just like they did in Week 6. You guys can take a look at the Browns' offensive roster. Shedeur Sanders, this rookie out of Colorado, is their starting quarterback for the rest of this season. Cam Robinson is their starting left tackle with Joel Bitonio, the former Pro Bowl left guard. Then you've got Luke Whippler, the young center. Then you got Wyatt Teller, who is questionable to play in this game, but he is their projected starting right guard. And then they've got KT Leviston as their starting right tackle. Then at the skill position players, you got Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman. Isaiah Bond out of Texas has also had a pretty decent rookie season, especially when Shedeur Sanders has been throwing him the football. Harold Fana Jr., I think, has over 700 yards as a rookie tight end. They feed him a lot. And then right now, I'm expecting Travion Williams to be the starting running back for Cleveland. Maybe it's Dylan Sampson, but right now, Travion Williams is the guy expected to be the number 1 running back on Sunday. Then we get to the defensive side of the ball for Cleveland, and, it's certainly better, right? There's top 5 in a lot of key areas, like yards per game allowed and yards per play allowed, EPA, success rate. They do a really good job in terms of stopping the ball and, not giving up a whole lot. Now, they do give up the 20th most points per game because their offense is so bad that, the field positioning is not fantastic and they end up giving up points. But this is a legitimate defense, guys. Definitely a top 10, if not a top 5 defense in the league. And a big reason for that is Myles Garrett, the pretty much perennial defensive player of the year candidate at this point. He is just an absolute revelation, man. He is so good. He's got an incredible bull rush. He can win with speed. He can win with finesse. He can beat you in every which way, which is why every team doubles and even triple teams him, and he's still able to have the impact on the football game that he does and still be able to put up as many sacks as he has put up this season. Mason Graham has been an excellent rookie out of Michigan for them, their first-round selection. Shelby Harris has played pretty decently for them after the injury to Malik Collins. And then Isaiah McGuire is their starting edge there. Then you get to the off-ball linebackers, Carson Schlesinger and Devin Bush both played very well this season. Good for Devin Bush. You guys remember, towards the end of his Steelers tenure, he was absolutely terrible. He has found a home here in Cleveland where he's played pretty darn good ball this season. Then you get to the secondary. We'll see if Denzel Ward is able to play for the Cleveland Browns this weekend. He's questionable, but Tyson Campbell is the guy they traded for, actually the week of the Steelers game back in Week 6. And then Ronnie Hickman and Grant Delpit are their starting safeties, with Miles Harden as the weak link there in the cornerback room playing the slot. So still to come here on the Steelers Talk Preview here in Week 17. Keys to victory versus the Browns. I got my scouting report on rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders and how the Steelers can get to him and make this a very long day for Mr. Sanders. And then we'll get into my official Week 17 score prediction for this ball game. But before we get into the rest of the preview here, go check out our friends here. Go to chatsports.com/AR8 and then use code CHEERS to get 25% 25% off an Aaron Rodgers jersey today. For me, guys, this has been a really fun season as a Steelers fan. It's going to be one that I always remember. It's going to be the year that Aaron Rodgers was our starting quarterback, and hopefully it's going to be the year that the Steelers can, maybe win a playoff game or, at least, go on a little bit of a run in the playoffs. That's what I'm hoping for here, guys. It's going to be a season where if you're in a Rodgers jersey 20 years from now, people are going to point to it and say, oh my gosh, I remember when we had Aaron Rodgers for that one or maybe 2 seasons. So if you guys want to have that kind of unique kind of jersey here, go to chatsports.com/ARA. Use code CHEERS to get 25% off your Aaron Rodgers jersey today. All right, so my first key to victory here is to go for the strip sack on Shedeur Sanders because he does have kind of a longer, a little bit loopier throwing motion. He does take a little while to get that ball out of his hands. And if you can get Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, these guys around the edge to swipe at that football, I think that's going to create some opportunities to make some game-changing plays on defense here. Shedeur is certainly somebody that likes to hold the ball for a little bit. He likes to scramble. I don't know if that's going to be very prudent to do against this very good Steelers defense, which I believe leads the league in sacks right now. If I'm not mistaken, they've been very good here over the last several weeks at getting after quarterbacks. And I think that Cleveland's going to be very pass heavy in this game. We just talked about the injury situation at the running back position in Cleveland, and I don't think they're going to want to run the ball a whole lot in this football game. I think they're going to try and be methodical down the field, use the screen game as an extension of the run game, and they're going to try and do a lot of quick game stuff to try and replace their run game with Shedeur Sanders throwing the football. So there's going to be a lot of pass attempts from Shedeur in this game, and usually that's a recipe for failure when you're playing against Mike Tomlin defenses for the first time. But that's exactly what the Steelers need to make him do, is make Shedeur Sanders beat them down the field. Go to guys like Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman and Isaiah Bond down the field instead of just dinking and dunking his way down the field, because Shedeur does not have a great arm. He does not, all right? It is a well below average NFL arm in terms of overall arm strength, and, he's going to want to win quick and underneath, because you better believe that Cleveland Brown coaching staff is going to tell him this pass rush that Pittsburgh has is really good. You're going to have to get the ball out quickly. So if you take away the underneath stuff, that's going to put a lot of pressure on Shedeur to make correct reads down the field and then throw balls accurately. And it might be windy. It's going to be cold out there in Cleveland. Like this, just make his life miserable out there, man. That is what you got to do if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. If you make Shedeur Sanders' life a living hell in that pocket on Sunday, there's going to be a very little chance that they end up winning this ball game. But then shifting over to the offensive side of the ball for Pittsburgh, first thing you got to do, double or even triple Myles Garrett. All right, he is an unstoppable force of a human being. Okay, there's a reason why every single team double and triple teams him, and he still is on pace to break the all-time sack record in just 17 weeks. Right, so. That's definitely something you got to do, and you got to limit his impact on this football game. The 2 ways you can do that if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, not only do you give Dylan Cook a lot of help on him and double teams and triple teams, but you run the football. All right, you look at the defensive numbers for the Cleveland Browns. Their EPA per rush allowed is a lot worse than it is EPA per pass allowed, because obviously that pass rush here in Cleveland is their bread and butter. And if you can run the football effectively on this Cleveland Browns team, you can really negate the impact Myles Garrett can have as a pass rusher. And as we know, Jalen Warren, Kenny Gainwell just ran for 230 on the Detroit Lions in Detroit last week. I'm not saying that they're going to repeat that performance, but we know this running back duo is more than capable of having a very successful day on the ground. Plus, this offensive line from the Pittsburgh Steelers probably had its best week of the season run blocking. They are really gelling at the right time, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this Steelers run game can do against this Cleveland Browns defense. And then the other way you can negate Myles Garrett is that you can get the ball out fast, and this is the way that they negated him back in week 6. All right, if you can get the ball out fast, if you can get the ball out to playmakers in space, if you can identify coverage pre-snap the way Aaron Rodgers can, you can get the ball out of your hands very quickly, and if you can do that, Myles Garrett's not going to have time to get to the quarterback. All right, so that's got to be a big part of the game plan. I certainly expect expect it to be, knowing how much Mike Tomlin respects the talents of Myles Garrett. And with a guy like Aaron Rodgers, whose football IQ is better than nearly any quarterback in the league right now, that's certainly an advantage the Pittsburgh Steelers have going into this game. Then also, you can't forget about the rookie up the middle on the defensive line there for Cleveland. Mason Graham out of Michigan is having a fantastic season this year, arguably a defensive rookie of the year type of performance in this season. He's certainly in the conversation. I think because Cleveland is so bad, nobody really knows how well this young man is playing, but he is a hell of a player, and they use him and Myles Garrett on stunts a lot, and that is an explosive duo. All right, so you got to have a plan on how to kind of handle those stunts, all those different things. But Graham can also beat you one-on-one, so that's definitely a player that you can't let beat you in this ball game either. And then I think in the passing game, Aaron Rodgers just needs to exploit the mismatch between the Steelers slot wide receiver, Adam Thielen, and then Miles Harden, their slot cornerback. All right, I think Thielen with DK Metcalf serving a suspension in this game, Thielen's got to be a big part of the game plan, all right? And Harden is their weak link in the cornerback room. And especially if Denzel Ward is out there, you're going to have Marquez Valdes-Scantling and probably Roman Wilson on the outside with Tyson Campbell and Denzel Ward on them in man coverage. I don't expect those two guys to win a whole lot, but I would expect Adam Thielen, a really shifty route runner that runs routes the right ways, has tough hands, to be able to beat Miles Harden pretty consistently. So I think Thielen, who had 4 catches last week, he led all receivers on the Steelers with yardage. He had 3 third-and-long conversions. He's got to be the safety blanket for Aaron Rodgers in this football game, and I would expect a big game from Adam Thielen in this one if Aaron Rodgers plays. Then we get to the final key to victory here in this ball game for me, guys, which is to protect the football. All right, I think that this is one of those games that could be a bit low-scoring, kind of a classic AFC North type of matchup, and in those types of football games, like one turnover, one pick six, one sack fumble can completely change the course of the ball game, all right? And we've seen with the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, when they don't turn the football over, they win football games. They are 6-0 this year in a game without a turnover, all right? So this is an offense that has done a really good job of that. I don't think Aaron Rodgers has thrown an interception in like 5 games at this point. He's done a really good job of that. So if the Steelers can just play clean football, they should have a very good chance of beating the Cleveland Browns this week. We can take a look at the points per game trends before I give my score prediction here, and the trends would predict a 24-20 Steelers win, which does put it outside of the margin of error, so the Steelers are the clear favorites heading into this ball game. And for me personally, guys, I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers to win. I'm going to have them win by multiple scores, but a little bit lower scoring. All right, I'll go 23-13. They win by 10. I don't think it'll be a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination, because this Cleveland Browns defense can create some havoc, but I do think that with the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though they won't have DK Metcalf, I do think Aaron Rodgers will continue to play efficient football. I think they'll get the run game going a little bit. I think this will be a good game for Adam Thielen. And if they need to win this game to lock up the division before Week 18, I think they're going to accomplish that job and wear that hat and T-shirt in Cleveland this Sunday afternoon. So it's your turn. Let me know down there in the comments section. Predict the score of Steelers versus Browns for this week's matchup. I've got 23-13 Steelers win. Let me know your guys' take down there in the comments section. And we'll be going live for this football game on Sunday afternoon, guys. We'll be going live an hour before kickoff at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we'll be having live play-by-play and analysis of the game itself and post-game reaction. Hopefully by the end of that game, the Steelers are AFC North champions. And they have a bye week heading into Week 18 as they play the Baltimore Ravens in a game that does not matter in terms of their playoff implications. But that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. We have in-depth previews like this for every single Steelers game. We're going to be having it for the Ravens game next week. We're going to be having them for the postseason games that the Steelers are going to be playing this year. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, 2 segments down here, folks. We got 2 more to go. And the next one is pretty fun, okay, because I found 2 very recent Super Bowl champion teams that the Pittsburgh Steelers are actually very similar to. All right, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the similarities. We're going to talk about what links these 3 football teams and why the Pittsburgh Steelers could be the next line in this type of football team to maybe compete for a Super Bowl championship. All right, but then we're going to get into your questions to finish up today's show. Of course, we don't have a live show on Thursday this week because it's Christmas, and we're not going to be going live on Christmas Day. So we're going to be doing all that stuff here in just a second here. So make sure you guys get those questions in. This is your last chance to do so. Hashtag Steelers to get your question on the show for free today, or Super Chat to get on today's show. Greatly appreciate your guys' support. What are you pointing at there, Ponzi? What's that? All right, we need more. Apparently we need more questions, all right? So get those questions in for free today, hashtag Steelers or Super Chat. It looks like this might be one of those days where you can put hashtag Steelers and get a question on the show. So we got some Super Chats that we're going to talk about here before we get into our next segment. Ruthless Bumpkin with a 2 says Cook has been good but needs to work on his footwork. I actually think Cook's footwork's been pretty good on film these last 2 weeks. I think it's actually been pretty darn good. His hand placement's really good. I think his anchor could be a little bit better, but I think he's been pretty decent to start these last 2 weeks.
I mean, he's been really impressive. I watched some of the film. Like you were saying, it's one of those things where it's like, if anything, his anchor's a little weak. He does get beat a little bit on some power, but I think every offensive lineman does. It's hard, especially with Aiden Hutchinson out there. He did get beat a couple times, but honestly, sometimes they left him alone on an island and it was fine.
Yeah, man, I think he's played very well. I think that right now you have to keep him at left tackle the rest of the season, and then I think he's played well enough where next year you have an open competition between him and Broderick Jones for the starting left tackle job.
I thought he did pretty well in these last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I agree, man. All right, let's is that the only one?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get into our next segment here, guys. A real fun one here. We're going to compare the Steelers to two very specific recent Super Bowl champions. And we're going to talk about the similarities between the Steelers and those two football teams and why the Steelers could be the next in line in this type of football team to have success in the postseason. All right, so Ponzi, whenever you're ready, we can get into it here. All right, Ponzi says we're ready, so let's get right into it here. How Pittsburgh might be repeating NFL history this season. Steelers fans, it is said that time is a flat circle, essentially meaning we see the same storylines over and over and over again, and whether it's history, whether it's football, we tend to see a lot of the same things happen time and time and time again in the history of things. And the Pittsburgh Steelers here in 2025, I believe, could be repeating NFL history. They could be following in the footsteps of two very specific NFL champion football teams here over the last half decade that have kind of paved the way for this year's Pittsburgh Steelers team to have the kind of success that we've been seeing them have over the last 3 weeks on their current win streak and hopefully extending all the way into the NFL postseason. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon to celebrate Pittsburgh's 3-game win streak we are currently enjoying here in the Steel City. Hopefully they can keep it going, and hopefully they can keep it going into the postseason. So greatly appreciate your guys' support. Now first, before I reveal who the two teams that we're going to be talking about and comparing to the Steelers are, let's break down the 2025 Steelers and kind of what the breakdown of this team looks like. They've got a new, older veteran at quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. They've got a very experienced roster with guys like TJ Watt and Cam Hayward, and they've brought new guys and new veterans in like DK Metcalf and Jalen Ramsey and all these guys. Then they got out to a fast start this year, 4-1 start, all right? Then they get out to a little bit of a mid-season lull. They lost 5 of 7 in the middle of the season. Then they're getting hot late. They've won 3 of their last 3 ball games here, and they're starting to get hot, and now they've put themselves in position to win the AFC North Championship and get a home playoff game here in 2025. Now, which teams over the last half decade or so, or over the last decade, have been similar to what the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing right now? And for me, guys, the two teams that I want to talk about today and compare to this year's Pittsburgh Steelers teams are Super Bowl champions, the 2020 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by Tom Brady, and the 2021 Los Angeles Rams, led by Matthew Stafford. All right? And, before I go into the breakdowns on these teams, I just want to say up front, I'm not saying the Pittsburgh Steelers are for sure going to win the Super Bowl. I just want to look at some of the comparisons that the Steelers definitely have with these two ball clubs in the seasons where they won Super Bowls. So we'll start with the 2020 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, all right? The same exact stuff that we just talked about with the Steelers, you can apply to that Buccaneers football team, all right? They had a new, older veteran quarterback in his first season with the team, Tom Brady's first season in Tampa, all right? They also had a very experienced veteran roster with guys like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Levante David, Jamel Dean, Carlton David, all these guys that they had, Vita Vea, they had a bunch of veterans that were already established on that football team. And then Tom Brady comes in with his experience and his arm talent and his football IQ. He gets the most out of that group. And guess what? They also got out to a fast start, a 6-2 start. Then they also had a midseason lull where they lost 3 of 4 ball games, and then they got hot late, winning 4 straight in the regular season, and then they capped it off with 4 straight wins, of course, in the postseason to be named Super Bowl champions over Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in their home stadium back in 2020. Then we can look at the Los Angeles Rams in 2021. It's the same thing. They traded 2 first-round picks and their current starting quarterback, Jared Goff, for Matthew Stafford, a new, older veteran quarterback with great arm talent and great football IQ. Sound familiar, Steelers fans? And they also had a very experienced veteran roster, and they famously went all in on that season. They had Aaron Donald, but they also brought in guys like Von Miller and OBJ, and they had Cooper Kupp, and all these guys that they had on the roster that year was a very veteran roster. Andrew Whitworth was on that football team, right? They also got out to a fast start, 7-1 start. So that's the best start we've talked about so far. But then they lost 3 straight games in the middle of their season, and then they also got hot late, winning 5 of their final 6, and then, of course, winning 4 straight in the postseason, including beating Tom Brady and the Bucs on their way to their Super Bowl championship. And for me, guys, I think that there are 3 things that connect these teams. The Pittsburgh Steelers this year, the 2021 Los Angeles Rams, and the 2020 Buccaneers. I think there are 3 things that connect these teams. And coming up here on Steelers Talk, I'm going to tell you the 3 things that link these football teams and why the Steelers could be the next in line of these types of football teams that go out and get a new, older, experienced starting quarterback and end up winning a Super Bowl in their first season with that team. But before we get into what those connections are, what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Well, is there a less than 0% chance that the Pittsburgh Steelers win the Super Bowl this year? All right, so less than, or is there less than, or is there more than a 0% chance that Pittsburgh wins the Super Bowl this year? Yes or no? F Ponzi there in the chat. I might have scripted that one wrong there, but is there a more than 0% chance that the Pittsburgh Steelers win a Super Bowl this year? Yes means you think there's at least a small chance the Steelers could win it this year, or no, meaning there is absolutely no chance the Pittsburgh Steelers can win the Super Bowl here in 2025. But before we get into the rest of today's show, guys, I want to give you guys a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks, and it is officially the holiday season. And in my opinion, guys, this is the best time of the year for watching sports, whether it's bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening all at once, and while all that action is going on, there is one place where it feels so good to be right, and that is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is super simple to play. You just pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. My favorite feature about Prize Picks is that how you play is up to you. If you want a little bit more flexibility, you can choose the flex play, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you're feeling really strong about a particular lineup and want a bigger payout, you can go for the power play. No matter how you play, though, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test, make some money. That is, if you know ball. And for Saturday night's matchup between the Ravens and Packers, I'm going to take the more on Brandon McManus PATs made, the more on rushing yards for Derrick Henry, and we're going to take an anytime field goal made for Tyler Loop, the Ravens kicker. So download the Prize Picks app for me today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So the first major link between the 2025 Steelers, the 2021 Rams, and the 2020 Buccaneers is that they all added an experienced veteran QB that is a future Hall of Famer. All right, you guys can obviously look at the quarterbacks in question here. Aaron Rodgers joining the Steelers, Tom Brady joining the Buccaneers, and of course Matthew Stafford joining the Los Angeles Rams in those respective seasons. And, you know, I think that there's a lot of things that experienced quarterbacks bring to the table to a new football team that has certainly helped the Steelers this year, and I think helped the Bucs and the Rams in their respective seasons, and has allowed these teams to in the Steelers' case, potentially compete for a Super Bowl, but obviously in Tampa and LA's case, they ended up winning a Super Bowl, is because you're adding somebody with high-level football IQ so they can get in and out of the right plays. They can operate the offense. They can audible into the right things based on what they're seeing pre-snap. Also, high-level arm talent. Now, Tom Brady was never known for insane arm talent, but he obviously had a very good arm. And then Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford are known for sidearm passes and all these crazy things that they can do with their arms, no-look passes, that type of stuff. Also, they all have high-level pocket presence. Tom Brady would get the ball out extremely quickly, just like Aaron Rodgers. Matthew Stafford's known for his pocket presence as well, and Rodgers might have some of the best pocket presence in NFL history. Also, because these guys have a long track record of success, they can bring a high level of leadership to the group because everyone is looking to them as the leader of the team. There's no question who the leader of the unit is out there. Also, because they've been in big games before, the clutch factor in the fourth quarter is very real. Matthew Stafford had that game-winning drive in the Super Bowl against the Bengals. Tom Brady had a number of game-winning drives that season for Tampa Bay. He beat Aaron Rodgers in the NFC Championship game in Lambeau, if you'll remember. And then Aaron Rodgers, of course, can certainly deliver some big-time passes in the fourth quarter. And then they also have extensive post-game experience. Experience in the playoffs matters, guys. It really does, because these younger quarterbacks that go in there, they've never been on a stage that big. The do-or-die nature of NFL postseason, you got to experience it at least a couple times usually before you can have a high level of success. And, Rodgers, Brady, and Stafford all have very extensive playoff histories, and they're not afraid of that big moment when it arrives. But the second major link between these three teams is that they've got that experienced veteran supporting cast around the quarterback, because it's more than just the QB, right? If you got an experienced quarterback, but you got a really young supporting cast, usually those teams don't win Super Bowls, all right? Experience matters in every position out there, and you gotta have other players at other positions clutch up in those big moments. Obviously, the quarterback is the most important position on the field, and you really want to make sure your quarterback is capable of delivering in those big moments, but you also need the players around them to be able to deliver in those big moments as well, and teams with more experience tend to have a little bit more success when they get to the postseason. Then the third major link is, yes, they all have Super Bowl level head coaches. And I know that, a lot of the people that want Mike Tomlin fired are probably going to object to me, calling him a Super Bowl level coach. But yes, I do believe Mike Tomlin is a good head coach. And I think, he's certainly in the same conversation as Bruce Arians as a head coach, who I hold in high regard. I'm a big fan of Bruce Arians. No risk it, no biscuit, that old stuff. I'm so glad he was able to win a Super Bowl before he ended up retiring. And then Sean McVay, with the Rams team in question that we're talking about today, is the only head coach in NFL history to win a Super Bowl that was younger than Mike Tomlin when he won his at 36 years old. All right, so Tomlin and McVay are the two head coaches, the two youngest head coaches in NFL history to win Super Bowls. Both of them were 36 years old when they won their respective titles. And yes, Mike Tomlin is a really good head coach. Now, you can make arguments that maybe he's not an elite head coach or that he's a top 5 head coach, but you simply can't go 19 consecutive seasons in the National Football League without a losing season and be a bad head coach. All right, you can't win a Super Bowl in this league while being a bad head coach. All right, you have to at least be a competent head coach to be able to get to that one Super Bowl championship, in my opinion. And Tomlin has certainly had his flaws throughout his career. He still has his flaws, all right? He's not the best game manager in the world, all right? He's not the best with challenges, all right? There's certain things that Tomlin is not perfect with in his profile, and I would say his biggest flaw and the biggest criticism you can lay at his feet, especially in previous seasons, is that he's had a really tough time building the proper roster and staff capable of competing in the postseason, especially since Big Ben started to wane towards the latter time of his career, and ever since the end of the Killer Bee era, man. He's had a really tough time, building this roster up, finding the right quarterback. He's had a couple misses at quarterback. He's had more than his fair share of misses at offensive coordinator. We know this as Steelers fans. But I believe this year's roster with Aaron Rodgers, all right, and bringing in Jalen Ramsey, bringing in DK Metcalf, still having TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig and Cam Hayward and all these guys, I think it's the best roster, and I think it's the best coaching staff. I know a lot of people don't like Terrell Austin, but he's really found a little bit of a groove here here in the second half of the season. I think it's the best roster and the best coaching staff that Mike Tomlin has had since the Killer Bee era, and I think that that's going to allow the Pittsburgh Steelers this year to be competitive when we get into the postseason. But I can hear the Tomlin haters at home screaming at me right now, but Jack, Tomlin only won the Super Bowl because it was quote-unquote Bill Cowher's team, and he inherited Big Ben Roethlisberger and Troy Polamalu and all these guys and James Harrison and all these people. And that's true, all right? Like, a lot of these players that Tomlin did have on his roster were drafted in the Bill Cowher era. But remember, in 2006, Cowher's final season here in Pittsburgh, the team went 8-8, and they missed the playoffs, all right? So it was a very mediocre season with those same exact players. Then immediately, when Mike Tomlin comes in 2007, they immediately kick off the Tomlin era with a double-digit win season, and they make the playoffs, all right? And then in his second season, they up the ante. They get even better, and they get to 12-4, and they win the Super Bowl. So he took a team that was 8-8, not a playoff team, and in 2 seasons won a Super Bowl with those same players, all right? Now, was he fortunate to get, a future Hall of Fame quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger from the jump? Absolutely. Tomlin himself would tell you that. But also the players in that locker room that won that Super Bowl with Mike Tomlin would tell you that was Mike Tomlin's team. He was the leader in the locker room. He was the one that was galvanizing the group, and he was the one that led the ship. It wasn't, Tomlin. The incompetent Tomlin came into a great team, and, the great players overcame a bad coach. Like, if you listen to the greats, you listen to Bill Belichick, who says good players can't overcome bad coaching. All right? Mike Tomlin won a Super Bowl with some really good players that he inherited, but he coached those players to play at their highest potential. All right, and he deserves credit for that, and I absolutely count that as a valid Super Bowl championship and a valid Super Bowl ring on the finger of head coach Mike Tomlin. And my take on Tomlin, guys, is that this is probably the best roster Tomlin has had in quite a while, probably since around 2017 or so. And this might be the roster that he's been waiting for to get him back into legitimate playoff contention, because he's gotten some teams that didn't even belong in the playoffs into the playoffs, and then he gets killed for losing in the playoffs with Mason Rudolph at quarterback and Russell Wilson at quarterback with TJ Watt injured and all this stuff. But it's they weren't expected to win those football games. Now, Tomlin deserves some credit for not building those rosters up enough to get them into Super Bowl contention, but I think this year's a bit different. Aaron Rodgers has the offense operating at the highest level we've seen in years. This defense is starting to turn a corner here late, and that's without TJ Watt and Nick Herbig in the lineup, all right? They're doing a lot of stuff that I really like on both sides of the ball. I like what both coordinators are doing right now towards the end of the season. I think that this is the best roster that Tomlin has formulated, maybe in the last half decade, but probably since the Killer Bee era, and I think that this team is going to have a chance to have playoff success this year. Now, I want to make abundantly clear, once again, I am not saying in this video that the Steelers are for sure going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that they're for sure going to repeat the title, success that we saw from the Rams and the Buccaneers, all right? I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that this year's Steelers team has a lot of similarities to those teams, and, we've seen this model before have success in the playoffs, and we've seen teams in this kind of mold that the Pittsburgh Steelers are in have Super Bowl winning seasons, all right? So to sit here and say as a Steelers fan that I have no hope, there's no way they're going to win a playoff game. There's no chance they could make a run in the playoffs, especially in a wide open AFC. I just don't understand that thinking. Because this team is playing its best football down the stretch, and I believe that this is the most complete roster and the best that this team has looked, in totality in quite some time. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will the Steelers win a playoff game this year? Type W if you think they get that elusive playoff win, or type N if you think they get no wins in the playoffs in the drought under head coach Mike Tomlin in the postseason continues. That'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for stopping by here today. Let me know what you guys think about my take here comparing the 2025 Steelers to the 2021 Rams and 2020 Buccaneers. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Till next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, coming up here, we got our mailbag. If you guys still have questions, let's give them a 2-minute shot clock here, Ponzi, and give them a final call on questions. Still got about 500 people watching, so if any one of you 500 have a question that you want to get on the show, use hashtag Steelers or Super Chat to get on the Q&A. Yeah, 3 minutes is fine. So Ponzi, what'd you think about that segment there? Because I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what, man, there's a lot of similarities there. And then I checked, how the schedule kind of broke down for all three teams, and it was pretty similar. So, we're seeing the Steelers team play pretty well, and obviously they still got a long way to go to reach the levels that those two teams reached. But at the same time, they're playing their best football of the season right now, right when you want them to at the end of the season. Both sides of the ball have seemed to figure out their identity, and you're gonna have right now you're on track. Knock on wood, but right now you're on track to have everybody healthy and available for the postseason. T.J. Watt is expected back by the postseason. Same thing with Nick Herbig, James Pierre, DK Metcalf suspension will be over by the playoffs, right? So I look at this team, man, and I look at a wide-open AFC. I see a team that can make some noise and win at least one playoff game. Obviously, we're hoping for more than that, and the expectation is that they go on a run. But listen, man, there's still a lot of negativity out there. What's your take on it?
One more connection, which I found this out too. They all added a Pro Bowl wide receiver who was cut in the middle of the season. Odell Beckham Jr.
That's true.
Adam Thielen. And Antonio Brown.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. But, yeah, Antonio Brown went to the Bucs. Thielen went to the Steelers. And then Odell went to the Rams. Now, I would say Brown and OBJ were better than Thielen is right now. Yeah. But, you can certainly make the connection there. But
I really think that, in terms of an idea, it's not a crazy thought to think that Aaron Rodgers couldn't lead this team to the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers, we've seen what he does. And obviously, he hasn't made a Super Bowl since his one and only one. But, if there is any year, it would be a year like this where it's a veteran crew, veteran head coach, Super Bowl caliber head coach. And I really think that, as I was going down, building the segment, I was like, man, this is actually not that crazy.
It's not. That's the thing.
I don't know, man. Something about the way that this team started, it's like, oh, man, team's going to the Super Bowl. We got it. But then the middle of the season lull, you're like, I remember all those years. It was like, is this team even going to make the playoffs?
Yes, dude. There was times there where Buccaneers, Rams, when they went to the playoffs, they were not the favorites to win the Super Bowl that year.
The Bucs were
a wild card
team.
The Bucs were what, the 5 seed? They were a wild card team, and then the Rams won their division, but they were not the favorites that year. And there were certainly times there where they would lose games and they would be like, we're still figuring it out with Von Miller and OBJ. And, they went through some bumps in the road in LA that season. And they were not the favorites to win going into that offseason.
Tampa Bay got dominated by New Orleans.
Yeah. And then they beat New Orleans on the road in the postseason.
Yeah.
And they lost to the Saints twice. Got killed twice in the regular season.
Everyone was the narrative in that 2020 season was Tom Brady is going to not make the Super Bowl because, his last year in New England was bad. The weapons in the Bucs are not that good.
And there's also other examples of older quarterbacks going to new teams and then in their first year with that team having success but not winning the Super Bowl, right? The Brett Favre with Minnesota, Kurt Warner with the Cardinals. There are these examples of these older quarterbacks going to a new team late into their career and then making a push in the playoffs. And like we talked about in the show, why is that? It's because of the experience. It's because of the football intellect. It's because, if you are a Hall of Fame level quarterback, and you do get older and you still have your arm talent, as long as you still have your arm talent, if you have a high level of football IQ and you can get in and out of the right play and do all that stuff, you can still be a really high-end quarterback. And we've seen that with Aaron Rodgers this year. He's been an above-average starting quarterback. For the Steelers this year.
I don't know if you saw the play that was on Twitter with NFL inside the NFL where he's telling Kenneth Gainwell on that touchdown, "Hey, motion out, go run a go."
Yeah, and that's just improv. That's just improv. That's exactly. Not a part of the play. That's just Rodgers seeing something in the defense pre-snap and saying, "Hey, this is a weakness. Go run a go, Kenny." And he does, and it ends up being a huge play that completely flips the momentum of the game. So it's gonna be interesting for sure to see what this Steelers team can do in the postseason. But listen, man, no matter what happens the rest of the way, Ponzi, this season is still abundantly more interesting and fun to watch and cover than if they would have not brought in Aaron Rodgers. Like, bringing in Aaron Rodgers was 100% the correct call. All right, that is undeniable at this point. Because if they would have went into the season with Will Howard and Mason Rudolph, this season would be over right now. It just would be. This season would be over right now. All right, and they would have maybe like 5 or 6 wins, in my opinion. But instead, you got 9 wins, and you are in position to win a division championship this week, in my opinion, because of what Aaron Rodgers brings to the offensive side of the ball.
If you look at us, how we were viewing like 4 weeks, 5 weeks ago, we literally had a video saying the season is over.
Yes.
In the middle of the season. And then they picked
I was out on this Steelers team after the Bills loss. I was like, dude, I just don't see this team turn it around. And then they did.
The season is over into this.
I mean,
you picked against the Steelers last 3 weeks.
Listen, man, I have said throughout this season, this team is built to get hot late. This team is built with all the veteran talent where, it's going to take time for this group to gel together. I said that at the beginning of the season. It's going to take time for this whole thing to look correct. But the goal is that by the time you get to the postseason, by the time you get to December, when you got to win these football games, it looks right. And right now, guys, what has it been the last 3 weeks? It's looked right on both sides of the football, and it's looking really good. All right, so I'm really excited to see what they're going to do. Let's get to any questions that have come in via Super Chat into the mailbag, Ponzi.
This one's not a question.
Oh, okay. So any of them that are not questions, we can hit them right now. Taco Man with a 5 has been saying it the whole season. Double down on my bets for the Berg to win it all. I kept the faith. Adding Thielen changed the offense immensely. Yeah, man. Once they made that switch from Roman and Calvin being their number 2 and number 3 to Thielen and MVS being their number 2 and number 3, it's completely changed the offense. I don't know what it is, a level of professionalism, more size, more chemistry, running the right route and the right versus the right coverage. I don't know. All right, I'm not Aaron Rodgers, but Rodgers just looks so much more comfortable with the guys out there now versus when it was Calvin and Roman in the secondary wide receiver positions. It just does. And that's not a slight against Calvin and Roman. It's just a fact that like adding more size into this group has made the screen game better. It's given them some physicality down the field. And, Rodgers just looks so much more comfortable out there. So, Taco Man, salute to you, man. I hope your bet hits and maybe spend some of that money here on Steelers Talk on our celebratory watch party on Super Bowl night. That would be fantastic, man. Also, if we make it to the Super Bowl, Ponzi and I will be going to San Francisco for Super Bowl week. That'd be a lot of fun to do as well.
I was born in California.
Yeah, it'll be, and so was Aaron Rodgers. It'd be a homecoming for both you and Rodgers. So at this point in the season, man, we can all dream, we can hope, but obviously we got to take it one step at a time here, one game at a time, and hopefully the Steelers can deliver us some results when it matters here this season. All right, let's get into our mailbag here, guys. I hope you guys have some good questions for me. Let's get into it right now. It's my favorite segment of the week. It is the Steelers Talk Mailbag here in Week 17, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are about to take on the Cleveland Browns here in Week 17 in Cleveland. And on today's show, I'm going to be answering your questions. So if you guys want to get a question on a future edition of the Steelers Talk Mailbag, we do a mailbag every single week. We record it on our live shows, usually on Thursdays. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. What we provide for you guys here on Steelers Talk is the most interactive community for Steelers fans anywhere here on YouTube. All right, so if you guys click that subscribe button and join our community, we put out daily community posts and polls for you guys to vote on and engage with each other in the chat. We also put out 2 videos a day talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, keeping you informed on all the latest surrounding this football team. And during the offseason, we're going to have free agency stuff, draft coverage, the whole 9 yards, breaking news coverage whenever big news hits. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Join the most interactive Steelers fan community anywhere here on YouTube. $2 here from Bernard says, do you think A-Rod is better than Russell Wilson? Yes, I do. And I think in the specific way, Bernard, that A-Rod is better than Russell Wilson was, and I said it during our free agency coverage this year, was A-Rod gets the ball out faster. With Russell Wilson, he would hold the ball forever, take a lot of sacks. And if you know anything about sacks, they're drive killers, man. You get into second and third and longs, and it's very difficult to dig yourself out of those situations. But what A-Rod does at such a high level is he reads the defense. He knows what he's going to get. On a specific coverage before he even snaps the football, and he can get the ball out fast because of that. The ball getting out fast helps the offensive line, and we've seen this offensive line grow tremendously because they don't have to pass protect for as long as they have been over the last several seasons. And, having a guy as intelligent and as efficient as Aaron Rodgers, I think, has really helped this offense stay on schedule, be efficient, do all the things that they've done this year, and that's really been the biggest upgrade for the Steelers offensively, going from Russell Wilson to Aaron Rodgers. Kevin Reed says, how do you think Cook will hold up against Garrett? Well, the thing about Cook is that he's not going to have to do it by himself. All right, they're going to give him a lot of help. They're going to give him chips. They're going to give him doubles. They're going to even put 3 guys on Myles Garrett. And then also, like we just discussed with Aaron, he's going to get the ball out fast. This is why Garrett had 0 sacks versus the Steelers when we played these guys back in Pittsburgh in Week 6. All right, it's because Rodgers was getting it out fast, and he knew, even with Broderick Jones at the time playing left tackle, they didn't give up any sacks because get the ball out fast, Garrett's not going to have time to get to the quarterback. So I think the 2 ways that you mitigate Garrett are pretty simple. Number 1, you run the football. And you run it away from him, then the second thing is you get the ball out fast when you do throw the football. So, the way that you can allow yourself to do that is avoid those third and long situations, avoid penalties, stay on schedule, do all those things. If you're going to throw it deep, throw it on your first read. That's good. That's all going to be a part of the game plan this week, as Myles Garrett is an absolute game wrecker and pretty much the unanimous defensive player of the year this season. Sark Craig says, no knock on TJ, but do you think the Steelers are playing a smarter style of defense schematically since Watt's injury because they can't lean heavily on him? I think that's part of it, Craig. I also think part of it is, Watt, when he's out there, I think the Steelers defense is slightly more predictable because, right now you've got kind of a balanced kind of set there where you've got Jack Sawyer and Nick Herbig on one side and Alex Highsmith on the other. And, the Steelers are dropping these outside linebackers a lot, all right? They're not rushing with all 5 guys a whole lot when they're in base right now. They're only rushing with 4, and they're being very creative with the way that they're deploying these sim pressures and sending linebackers and safeties while dropping linemen into coverage. That's something that Terrell Austin and Mike Tomlin usually never have done in the past. Now they're implementing it, and it's working phenomenally. And Watt is capable of going out in coverage. It's just he's so good rushing the passer, and that's what they pay him to do. It's just, when they play Watt, it's a little bit more predictable about which outside linebacker is going to rush and which one's going to go out into coverage when they do play that style of ball. So, maybe they want to, mix it up a little bit more. I think that would be prudent is when Watt gets back, put him out in coverage a little bit more. Keep these offenses on their toes because we know Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, Jack Sawyer, these guys are capable on the other side of the line rushing the quarterback. And I know it sounds a little bit counterintuitive to put your $41 million per season edge rusher out in coverage, but we've seen the results of that style of defense over the last several weeks, and it's worked for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So hopefully they can continue to do that when Watt eventually gets back. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Will Aaron Rodgers be back with Pittsburgh next season? Simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section for today's pinned question. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. Well, I'll tell you about Prize Picks. Get down there in the comment section. Simply give me a yes or a no. With that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And it is the holiday season, guys. And in my opinion, it's the best time of the year for being a sports fan. Bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes, it's all happening all at once. Well, all that action is going on. There's one place where it feels good to be right, and that is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a super simple daily fantasy app here, guys. It's super simple to play. Just pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. My favorite feature about Prize Picks, though, is that how you play is is up to you. If you want a little bit more flexibility and you want to just have fun with it, you can choose the flex play where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. But if you're feeling really strong about a particular lineup and you want to go for it all, you can go for the bigger payouts with the power play. No matter how you play, though, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test and make some money. That is, if you know ball. So for Saturday night's matchup here between the Packers and Ravens, a big one for the Steelers, I'm going to take the more on Brandon McManus. PATs made. I'm going to take the more on rushing yards for Derrick Henry and the more on field goals made for Tyler Loop. You guys can download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Question here from DJ KJ says, who do you think will be the best player on Sunday? Also, I hope this game isn't a heart attack game. Well, hopefully the game doesn't matter really at all, DJ KJ. Hopefully the division's locked up and we're playing Will Howard on Sunday. But if the game, matters, I think the guy that needs to step up on offense with DK Metcalf being suspended is Adam Thielen, all right? Because Miles Harden is their slot cornerback in Cleveland. Denzel Ward might be back this week on the other side of Tyson Campbell. And with DK Metcalf out and Roman Wilson and MVS likely starting on the outside, that puts a lot of pressure, in my opinion, on Adam Thielen to have a big game against Miles Harden, because I do think Cleveland's going to play a lot of man coverage. So that's going to give Thielen a lot of opportunities man-to-man against the weak link in the Cleveland Browns secondary. We saw last week Adam Thielen get open against man coverage, against zone, against all different types of coverages to get big-time completions, and I think he had 3 first down completions on 3rd and long situations. So Thielen was huge in those types of weighty situations for the Steelers last Sunday. I expect him to have a much bigger role in this ballgame, maybe even get up to like 8 to 10 targets. I think that he's going to have to play that big of a role here with DK Metcalf out, but obviously running the football, getting the ball to your playmakers in space like Darnell, Jalen, and Kenny is also going to be important. Finding a way to get a deep shot every now and then to MVS or Roman will be big as well. But Thielen, I think, as that tactician, that route runner in the slot, I think is going to play a big factor in this ball game if it matters on Sunday. Kenneth Kalo here says, do you think we may see more Caleb Johnson, especially if the division is locked up? It's certainly possible. He didn't get a helmet last week, so we'll see if he ends up getting a helmet this week. But I look at Caleb, and I see somebody that, the Steelers probably feel like is still cooking in the oven, and they're going to, take him out next year. But, if the division's locked up, there's a lot of guys that I want to see play more. I want to see Caleb play more. I want to see Roman Wilson play more. I want to see some of these guys that might be asked to take on bigger roles in the future, see what they can do. Will Howard, I think I would start him instead of Mason Rudolph if you're going to bench Aaron Rodgers this week and next. So certainly there's players here that, you've drafted pretty high recently that haven't been contributors, or at least haven't been contributors recently for the Steelers, that if the division is locked up, I'd absolutely love to see them get more playing time moving forward. Make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. The real ones know liking the video is the best way to help out the channel. It tells the YouTube algorithm that you're enjoying this content as a Steelers fan, so they're going to recommend it to other Steelers fans. And, if they see it in their recommendations, they're going to click on our videos for the first time, click that subscribe button, helps the channel grow, and then they'll click the thumbs up icon, right? So it just becomes, a little bit of an avalanche when a lot of people click that thumbs up icon, helps our videos do the best that they can possibly do. So if you enjoy the content we provide for you guys for free here on Steelers Talk, I'd greatly appreciate it if you click that thumbs up icon. JT Clover says, is Baker or Goff opinions going into next year? What's that, Ponzi? Options going into next year, especially Baker, because I could see the Bucs moving on. I don't think so. Goff is not the issue in Detroit. In fact, I've been very impressed that he's put up the numbers that he's put up despite the offensive line taking a step backwards this year. I didn't think that was going to be the case, but it has been the case, and he had an awesome fourth quarter against the Steelers defense. I mean, a lot of people are trashing the Steelers defense for giving up as many yards and points as they did in the fourth quarter last Sunday, but I'm watching that film, and I'm like, it's one crazy good throw after another from Jared Goff. And, I chalk that up more to good offense than bad defense. And, Goff almost led that team back, on his back. He carried that team in the fourth quarter. And then Baker Mayfield, it's just, for me, JT, it's a matter of who are you going to get instead. and there's just not a whole lot of great options, right? Kyler Murray, Jacoby Brissett, maybe Matthew Stafford becomes available if Burrow gets traded to the Rams, but I think that's highly unlikely. There's not that many good quarterbacks in the draft this year. I think they're going to stick with those guys. So I don't see Goff or Baker being realistic options, JT. If you're looking for realistic options, I would look at Aaron Rodgers, who is a free agent next year. Bring him back for another season. Kyler Murray. I would look at potentially Geno Smith. And I know these probably aren't options that you love, but those are the ones that I see being realistic at this point in time. Gary Frank says, do you think Gainwell and Washington have made a big impact? I think so. Yeah, definitely. Especially Gainwell, man. Like, Gainwell is your leading receiver. I think he leads the team in receptions and even receiving yards, if I'm not mistaken, this season. So he's been huge. It's just a Swiss Army knife offensive weapon. And then Washington, obviously, to be able to just do a check flat with Darnell Washington, get him the ball out there when they sag off in coverage, and then he just runs over a DB. It's just so entertaining to watch. So these two guys are some of the best players on the Steelers offense, in my opinion, Gary Frank. So, yes, I would say they have been a big impact. So let me know down there in the comment section, what is your confidence level in Mike Tomlin as Pittsburgh's head coach? Put it on a scale of 0 to 100 down there in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. And make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. Make sure you guys join us for our mailbag next week as well. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.
Got some breaking news here.
Yeah, we do have some breaking news. It's not good news. The 2-game suspension for DK Metcalf has been upheld. So that means that it's going to stick.
Do we want to refilm that first segment, obviously?
Yeah, maybe, yeah, but we're probably going to do it outside of live.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll discuss this quickly, and we'll get out of here because we got to refilm that first segment, obviously. Got some super chats that we can get to. Do we? Yeah. Okay. So we got some super chats here. He says, I think A-Rod has a lot left in the tank than Favre. Well, at this point, certainly. I mean, Favre's done. But, Favre had one really good season. And honestly, Favre's first season in Minnesota was better than A-Rod's first season here in Pittsburgh. No question about that. Favre almost had an MVP season in Minnesota that season. So that was always going to be tough to replicate for Aaron Rodgers here in Pittsburgh. But that's okay. We don't need Aaron Rodgers to be, a world-beating MVP caliber quarterback to be able to make some noise in the playoffs. So I'm just hoping A-Rod can be the A-Rod he's been the last 3 weeks. I'm not asking for anything more than that. So, but obviously, with the 2-game suspension being upheld, Ponzi, we're looking at, this week meaning a lot. Because if we go into next week and the season's on the line against the Ravens, and you don't have DK Metcalf, who is a big part of the reason why you beat them in the first place in Baltimore, I don't love it. I honestly, I don't like that. But on the other hand, I like our chances of coming out of this week as division champs. Like, I would pick the Packers to beat the Ravens on Saturday, and I would definitely pick the Steelers to beat Cleveland. So you only need one of those things to happen. It's not like you need both. You just need one of those things to happen to have the division locked up by the end of the weekend. So I still think the Steelers will have the division locked up. And that second game won't matter. But that's officially going to end DK Metcalf's regular season, unfortunately. And void his guarantees. Almost 45 million of his guarantees voided. Now, I don't think the Steelers have any plans on trading him or cutting him unless there's more incidences like this. But so he's still probably going to make that money. But obviously, losing those guarantees is a pretty big deal. And he might even ask to renegotiate his contract so he can get some of that guaranteed money back in future seasons. So we'll see what happens with that. But we got some more super chats here. I thought A-Rod came with a lot. LOL. What does that mean? Came with a lot of drama. listen, man, like you guys know if you've been watching the channel for a while, I always thought, yeah, that's a risk or a possibility, but like I've been saying for months at this point that I think Aaron Rodgers is one of the most misunderstood people in the National Football League. And people don't like him because of some of the stances he took during COVID and stuff like that, which is fine and all that different stuff. And I'm not trying to say he acted perfectly in that situation, not by any stretch, but like people make it seem like he's a selfish person that doesn't care about anybody else. And that's just not true. That's just not true at all. $2 from Bernard again. Says, I thought A-Rod was the blame for the Jets, LOL. Nope, the Jets were the problem. The Jets are always the problem, unfortunately for them and their fans. All right, and he says, I thought A-Rod was drama, LOL. So he's just putting a lot of things in there. We appreciate you, Bernard. Got any more? All right, so we're going to wrap up the show here, guys. But make sure you guys join us on Saturday. What's that? Oh, we just got another Super Chat. Major Ackerman with a 5. He says, I think Drew Aller sitting behind Rodgers would be wonders. He was in a terrible system behind Andy K at Penn State. He could be great for a day 3 pick. I'm right there with you, Major Ackerman, for a day 3 pick. You got a lot of them, right? You got 12 picks in the draft next year. If you want to spend one of those day 3 picks on Aller, if he's still there, and Rodgers is for sure coming back for another season, I think Aller's the type of guy, the guy with a lot of arm talent, showed some promise, especially back in 2024, and early in the season this year showed some promise, but obviously came up short in a lot of areas. The accuracy, the decision making, the mental processing was substandard there at Penn State throughout his career. But perhaps a year working with Aaron Rodgers could help develop him. And he's got legitimately amazing arm talent. Like his ability to, when he throws a seam ball, man, the ball is almost invisible. Like it goes so fast. It's insane. And obviously you need a guy with that caliber of arm to play in this division because it gets cold, it gets windy, it gets snowy, and everybody plays outside in this division, or at least for the time being. So F Cleveland in the chat for planning a dome stadium, by the way. But Drew Aller, if you're going to draft a guy on day 3, Aller's one of the guys that I would consider, especially if Rodgers comes back for another year, because he has the physical talent to develop and to mold and all that different stuff. But, I honestly, day 3 QBs, any of them, I can take or leave them. If they want to go into next season with Will Howard getting another year of development, I'd be fine with that. So, we'll see what ends up happening. We'll see if Rodgers comes back, all that different stuff. A Venmo. Oh, we do have oh my gosh, we do have a Venmo. Thank you for letting me know. What's up? Yep, Steelers Dad with a $50 super chat. Bang! Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. All right, man. Steelers Dad says, I am feeling very optimistic about this team. As always, appreciate your coverage. Steelers Dad, you're a real one, man. You've always been a real one of the longtime supporters of the channel. We love you. We appreciate you. I hope your health's okay, Steelers Dad. I know you were going through a little trouble there for a little bit, but we hope you're doing okay. Got a couple more super chats to hit here before we say goodbye. What's that? No, I think we're good. Yeah, we're good. All right, man. Let's get into some final super chats. We got Shamani Man says, if Ravens lose, do we still need a win on Sunday? No, we do not. If the Ravens lose on Saturday, we win the division. So there's that. That'd be great, man. We're going to be live, by the way. We'll be live on Saturday for our Ravens Hate Watch Party on Saturday night. We'll go live at 30 minutes before kickoff. It'll start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you guys want to join us on Saturday, we'll be having our Ravens Hate Watch Party. If the Packers win, the Ravens are eliminated from playoff contention, and the Steelers will officially be crowned AFC North champions for 2025. It will also lock in a losing season for Baltimore after being dubbed Super Bowl favorites at the beginning of the season, which would maybe put John Harbaugh's job in question by Black Monday. But $2 here from Troy Philip Abuga says, if we lose Ravens versus Raven and Browns, who should we get rid of and why? So he's saying if the season completely crumbles. What's that? Oh, so okay, yeah. So he says, Jack, if we lose both Browns and Ravens, who should we kick out of the team and why? Well, I'd have to watch the games, Troy Philip Abuga, but honestly, if we lose out on this opportunity to win the division at this point, we lose to the Browns and then the Ravens, it'd be tough for me to say fire Mike Tomlin because obviously DK Metcalf's suspension is going to loom large here, and that's going to be a big reason why, in my opinion, the Steelers are not able to secure the division. So, I that's not a question I can reliably answer for you right now, Troy. But call me if and when it happens, all right? If it happens, we will definitely be discussing how to fix this Steelers roster if they end up missing the playoffs this year. But hopefully that's not going to happen, guys. Not only are we going live on Saturday, though, guys, we are going live on Sunday, of course, for Steelers versus Browns. For our live watch party this weekend. So make sure you guys join us at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, an hour pregame, followed by live play-by-play and analysis. We're hoping that it's going to be a celebration of a AFC North championship, and maybe we get to see the first of Will Howard in a Steelers uniform in an actual NFL game. So that'd be really fun if the division's already locked up by then, so it'll be no stress. But it's going to be a fun Sunday for sure, no matter what. So make sure you guys join us for that. That'll be it for today's live show, guys. Greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. We'll see you guys next time. And until then, here we go, Steelers.